The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Simbaj Pai, and I'm the Director of Business Operations at Innovizent. Innovizent is a full-service IT provider focused on delivering innovative and value-driven business analytical solutions, leveraging data science to assist our financial services clients in achieving their business goals. Innovizent offers pioneering free real-time tested and custom-built solutions. Our service offerings include lending analytics, fraud analytics and detection, consumer segmentation, asset liability analysis, product profitability, channel optimization analytics, credit risk insights. Today's webinar is Segment and Conquer. Leverage data science AI techniques to unlock the customer insights based on consumer segmentation. This webinar will be represented by Mr. Souvik Das, who is Practice Lead Analytics and Data Practice at Innovizent. Souvik has over 18 years of experience in data management and analytics for financial services industries and has strategized and led multiple data management analytics initiatives across industry practices. His experience includes various segmentation initiatives such as consumer segmentation, B2B segmentation, claim segmentation, etc. Before going ahead to the webinar today, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, please drop in a message on the control panel of the GoToWebinar. We'll bring up at the end of the session, for which we have allocated 10 minutes. And also this call has been recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel and sent after this session to all the attendees. So without any further delay, let me pass on the session to Souvik. Let's go ahead and understand what techniques can help us segment and conquer.
Morning, Sim. Morning, everyone. Thank you. First of all, I do apologize. I'm a little bit under the weather, so you'd hear a bit of sore throat and other unpleasantries coming through. So I do apologize for that. Today's session is on segment and conquer. We are going to focus on different areas of segmentation. Segmentation is pretty much a popular technique. It's been going around for a long time now. But we are going to touch upon, apart from various usages of segmentation techniques and use cases, we're also going to talk about how data science and AI techniques are used, and personally what I have seen in the industry being used. We're going to talk about various sides of AI, about 3 of them, and then within that, what kind of algorithms one can use for segmentation purposes. As Sim said, any questions, please deposit the question on the message box. We're going to take as many as we can at the end of it. If we can't take any of your questions, we'll promise that we'll get back to you offline over email. So today our agenda, we're going to see how much we can cover. We intend to cover all of it, but we might skip through a couple of them in the interest of time. But we've got a full agenda today, so we're going to start off very quickly with who are we, our overview, and then what segments provide the most value for your company, what use cases would be relevant for you, which segments are cost effective, easy to reach. Then a fundamental question that we face all the time, that segmentation is fine. In most of the cases we talk about customer segmentation, what are the foundational components that you need to build for customer segmentation? And there lies the single view of customer across the channels through which you engage them. How to capitalize the behavioral data to fully understand your customer. Excuse me. We are also going to touch upon across these sections what are the other data sources you can think about. Some of the external data vendors that you can latch onto if your internal data source is not sufficient for your use case. And then how to leverage the data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning techniques to generate actionable insights. And lastly, we will conclude with our differentiators and, more importantly, some of the case studies that you have seen. At least one case study we'd like to go detail into. So with that said, I'm going to get into the corporate overview. We started our company about a year and a half back. We are a spin-off of a larger company. We focus predominantly on the big data and analytics side, although we do have presence in other data management spaces. Analytics is at our heart of it. We understand that the world is evolving towards digital, and to enable digital, analytics plays a pivotal role. I personally manage the analytics practice at Innovizent. We've got diverse expertise, diverse presence, and we are independent and integrated. We've got alliance with all the product leaders in this marketplace. Some of them are shown, but we do have a bigger horizon or bouquet of product vendors that we have alliance with, as well as skill set on. We are going to talk about our company and our differentiators later in the webinar, but let's get started with the segmentation in itself. So we'll start with what is segmentation, kind of very basic question. Segmentation is simply a way to categorize or cluster your population, and your population can be anything really. It can be consisting of any entity. The idea is that based on common set of features, we group entities. We recognize patterns among similar entities when we are grouping them, and then predicting characteristics and behaviors of new or unknown entities. Now, the question is why segment? The simple answer to this, obviously, we've got a whole 10 odd bullet points written on this. But the idea is that if you segment, the fundamental advantage that you're going to get is you're going to have a target population that you can strategize your business appropriately on. For instance, one of the companies that we were working on, they were struggling to segment their customer population. First of all, they didn't know what to segment it on. They did have some strategy as to how to engage differently to them, but they were faltering. They were saying that some of the high value customers or high potential customers were getting left alone, while some of the customers that they were focusing on putting their horsepower and money and energy in, they were not really yielding that much of revenue, but it was only getting revealed after the fact. So we got into the act. We found a way to, first of all, find the parameters based on which you can segment. We could segment their customer base. And then through evolution, we could come up with 4 segments. And then we sat with them to strategize how to engage with them. And the segments could be stable segment where it's high value and stable, where the revenue coming in from those customers are high but stable. They're not growing at a rapid pace, but we expect that to be stable going forward. Where the segments where we don't see a lot of growth coming in, a segment which is not really that much value providing, and in some, and then the 4th segment is where we should really put our focus on, wherein the segment with really high potential. So long story short, the segmentation, the reason why we would like to segment is, first of all, divide the population and then figure out which population, which section of the population we should target and how. It goes slightly deeper into it. If you're talking about customer segmentation, more often than not, the next level of analysis that we do is on products or offerings or services, whatever is the product that you provide to the marketplace. So inadvertently, when you segment, the next best thing to do that we have seen in the marketplace is to see which products and offerings are the reason for high value customers to be high value, and where the products are really penetrating the market and which products are not. And then with that comes the product strategy, the pricing of it, the bundling of the product, the features, benchmarking against the industry, and all of that. It is not really a segmentation issue per se, but it is something that follows immediately after segmentation. But segmentation usually is aimed for and usually results into higher customer retention or acquisition. As I said, it's has impact on pricing, and overcome the competition effectively. And we're going to talk about some of this later. What makes a good segmentation? On the right hand side of the slide, if you see, there are different systems, different techniques through which you can segment. The most effective segmentation is the one that is really measurable, profitable, predictive in nature, and sustainable. It is also realistic and understandable to the business users. There are different ways to skin a cat, proverbially, but what is the best segment is the one that makes sense to your business, that helps you participate in the company's overall strategy. Moving on to the next slide, segmentation methodology or process. This is the 6-step process that we prescribe. We always ask our customers to start with the business issue. If we don't have a business issue, a segmentation or whatever technique we use, it lacks purpose, it lacks a structure. So first and foremost, why exactly do you want to do segmentation or anything at all? Whether it results into segmentation or some other modeling techniques or something else that's going to be a function of the business problem at hand. As generally for segmentation, usually where, as I said, there's a population and we want to target different sections of the population differently, the possibility of segmentation arises. Once the business issues are identified, we need to clarify the scope and the dimensions on which the business problem has to be diagnosed, and then generate and refine the hypothesis. Generally in data science, we, in more often than not, we go for piloting first, and then we gradually evolve our solution. This segmentation problems are no different. If your business problem mandates that it has to go through a segmentation, we have seen in some cases segmentation models evolve over a period of 6 months, 8 months, sometimes even a year. And that too, since segmentations do vary. But it's always important that the first base model that you create through a pilot model, and then evolve that over time with a very strong engagement with the business. I'll give you an example of a consumer segmentation project that we have done. We have developed it over 6 to 8 months. We have benchmarked it against Axiom's Personix segmentations. Axiom is one of the external data providers. It provides about 70 odd segments. And that was kind of a challenger model to the 12 segment model 12 segments that our models produced. We did all of that. We came up with our final consumer segmentation for this particular client, only to figure out that the economists for that particular financial institution, they're predicting 17% chance of recession next year. If that is the case, then obviously your macroeconomic factor changes and you have to again redo your modeling exercise for segmentation. So segmentation is not static. What you can do is you come up with base. After these stages, you come up with a base model, and then you keep revisiting them as and when the basic assumptions for your modeling techniques or segmentation routines that you've used that change. Anyway, so after you come up with the hypothesis, you decide on which data to use, collect the data, then build the segmentation framework, linked to marketing and business strategy. This is a serial process that you follow to come up with the base, and then you go through a review and refine process for a while to stabilize your base model. And then there comes the iterative process cycle, which kind of goes on. This performance assessment that you see, so goal analysis, data preparation, analysis, followed by performance assessment. And then that results into goal analysis once again. This performance assessment for modeling in data science, it's part of the operationalization process, wherein It's the performance of the model output that you measure on a continuous basis. For segmentation, we have seen that some of the cases, the performance KPIs are easy to derive. In some of the cases, it is not. Why the latter is because sometimes segmentation is very, very foundational to many problems that your company wants to solve. For instance, if your company is mostly in B2B kind of a business where you're engaging with other corporates, and let's say you want to segment them so that you then see what kind of products you can offer to them, what kind of engagement you can do with them, what kind of rebate, volume rebate that you can provide to them, or whole other kind of corporate engagement strategy depend on them. All of that would depend on the kind of segment that you come up with. The problem there is once your segmentation results are yielded, for you to know whether that segmentation is appropriate or not, there's a huge lag cycle, and that sometimes is also not very objective. In those cases, what we've seen is apart from quantitative matrices, you can have some qualitative matrices as well, and do your performance assessment in conjunction with the business, who are in the best place to say whether the model outputs are adopted as is or they have manually overridden some of the outputs. Either way, as the point remains that it's a cyclic process, you have to keep evolving, keep assessing, and adjusting your models to perform the best. Now, different types of data used. Behavior segmentation. So it essentially targets this particular question: what are they doing? Or in other words, product usage, loyalty, brand awareness, price paid, etc. Channel segmentation. So what are the channels through which it's engaging? You can divide your base population on that. Obviously, demographic segmentation, it perhaps is the most classical way of segmenting. The lifestyle, the life stages, the geography, the industry type, the income level, the age group, and so on and so forth. The occasion segmentation, which is purchase and usage occasions, and needs-based segmentation, so category needs, desires, beliefs, opinions, etc. Although there is this bar which says that as we move from purchase to needs-based, your segmentation techniques go from tactical to strategic, it's not really true in all occasions. It again depends on what business purpose for which you're going to use the segmentation. In some cases, some of the ones appearing on the left-hand side of the slide can very well be fit for your purpose. Now, as I said, in data science, most of the things are cyclic. Segmentation is no different. It starts with describing. It's another attempt to show you how the cycle rotates. So what happened and why? This is the describe phase, and business involvement is really, really heavy. They need to very, very vividly tell you what exactly is expected out of the solution. The next is the trust and trust predominantly in the context of your data. Now, you might know this already, but one of the common themes that I personally have seen, and I think most of the data scientists would at least agree, is that not only segmentation, any data, any modeling exercise that you do, in either it is statistical modeling or predictive modeling, the predominant challenge is not choosing what method to use, what language to use, or what technical platform to use, or not even the talent pool of the data scientists. All of them can be plugged. The main problem that we see here, and majority of the fund goes into mitigating that problem, is your data. Most of the companies where we are trying to implement data science, AI, and so on and so forth, let us remember that most of those companies have evolved over decades. So most of their data is also archaic. The storage of it, the content of it, sometimes the content is not sufficient. Sometimes the storage is file-based, not OCRable. So I think the main question in the context of this particular webinar that you need to ask is, for segmentation, what kind of data you need, and then go into a data analysis to see whether you can trust your data. If you can't trust your data, obviously you can use data, data science techniques like value imputation and so on and so forth to plug the holes to some extent, or you can see whether there is a need for external data sources if the data is really, really not sufficient, doesn't even meet your minimum criteria. Excuse me. So after the trustworthiness of your data comes the value that exists in your data. It actually happens symbiotically at the same point in time. The next one, once you're satisfied with your data, is how do you embed data analytics in your organization, how your organization uses analytics, and then organizationally are you rightly structured to provide insights. One of the things that we see in the data management space, because of the advent of the CDOs, and not only in the data science, but all across, wherever there is a case for enterprise data management, we see that in most cases, the companies are struggling with one thing, which is this particular bit. The insights are being delivered to the right people at the right time, but even fundamentally, whether the business and the CDO's organization, they are going in tandem. Now, different organizations are structured differently. Analytics may or may not be part of your CDO. Sometimes it is part of your chief analytics officer, but whatever it is, it still remains a horizontal that intends to solve business problems. And sometimes we feel that there is a gap in which the modelers and the business folks speak. There's a gap between the organization structure. These are kind of fundamental and foundational problems that you need to solve or at least mitigate. And then the next in the cycle is optimize what is the right answer for your business, and then predict what might happen next. Moving on to the next one, different data sources combined in one segmentation. So the segmentation problem can be best solved if you segment on a vast variety of data. Your primary data sources are, as the left pillar says, behavioral satisfaction, communication channels, etc. Then you have a customer data set. We're going to talk about this we've got a dedicated section for it on the True Customer 360, which kind of is the heart or the core building block for the customer segmentation problems. And any third-party data that you are bringing in, it can be lifestyle data, it can be behavioral data or demographic data. In some cases, we have seen customers bringing in different opinion-related data, or they're deriving their score for influencing other people from social media. However, its application is limited to some industries. In some of the cases, like healthcare, for instance, because they're governed through very tight HIPAA rules, using public domain data is not always applicable. So it varies from time to time, or place to place, industry to industry, the usage of third-party data. But in most of the cases, you'd find some third-party data provider or the other, whether it's public or private, available out there to augment your data set. Questions you may hear: growth and new opportunities, market structure, product development, channel deployment, etc. These are, when you hear these things, typically many of them in many of the occasions would actually result into segmentation as its solution. Key tenets of segmentation. As I said, no one segmentation will work in all situations. The value of segmentation does not come from segmentation solution, but from leveraging it. The segmentation, in most of the cases, should have customer at its heart, not the product. But again, that depends on what kind of segmentation you're doing. But most of the cases that we have seen, whether it's consumer segmentation, B2B segmentation, or even claim segmentation, which runs on different kind of claims, customer typically or should be at the heart of your segmentation analysis. There are other tenets also. We're going to share this deck after the fact, so you can go through it. Now, the next section is which segments are cost effective and easy to reach. So it's a lot of text. It's a verbose slide that you can read at your leisure. But the point we are making is for B2B segmentation, the typical things that we see, segmentation dimensions, if you like, would be customers based on needs. Then customer based on firmographics. Typically, firmographic would mean different variables of your firm or the firms that your firm serves. For instance, business size, company location, industry, sometimes technology, if technology is used by your B2B customer. And then obviously the tiering of the customer. Typically, it means the size of the customer, the size of the revenue that you generate off that customer, whether it's gold tier, platinum tier, bronze tier, or whatever. That's another way of segmenting your B2B clients typically. Your B2C clients, I don't think there's a slide for that, but as I think we touched upon it in one of the previous slides, you typically segment over attitude data, your customer demographic data, different other product usage and other core data set, as well as lifestyle data if you have it, or if you need to procure it. Why? How can you link your customer segmentation to business strategy? These are some of the ideas to which you can link your segmentation to business strategy. So brand, portfolio, and architecture strategy helps plan out brands in the portfolio relative to meaningful and profitable, attractive customer segments. Creates customer view of the business brands and clarifies brand perceptual license to extend. These are some of the examples that you can keep a note of. Then brand identity and positioning strategy, marketing effectiveness, and customer experience. Now, market segmentation, typically when we do market segmentation, it can be products or services. There can be different kind of market in the first place. There can be homogeneous market where there is a large population with similar needs, in this case, needs for products or services. Or there can be heterogeneous market. Depends on what population you are targeting to segment. Now, the four kind of dimensions for market segmentation would be geographic, demographic, behavioral, and psychographic. The other three are kind of self-explanatory. The psychographic typically means the customers when they're grouped by lifestyle. We will move on to the next item in the agenda, which is single view of customers across channels. Now, single view of customer is kind of a building block for your customer segmentation problems, as well as any other segmentation problem. Even if it is product segmentation, you'd need to know your customer well. Now, what is the challenge of having a single view of customer? I think whoever is exposed to large organizations, we all know that those organizations have grown, and most of the cases they have grown over time based on product lines. So individual product lines have grown. They have created their own business processes, the way to manage data, way to manage customers, way to create technical components to either originate or service the products for customer or engage with the customers. So customer in almost all the large organizations that we talk about, they have customer data maintained in silos. Single view of customer is, now if you're doing segmentation for one business unit, that might be all right. But if you're doing that siloed maintenance of customer data can still be okay. But if you're doing segmentation for the corporate, then you'd need to create a single view of customer. This is an area, technically, it falls outside the realms of analytics. Typically, it is solved through master data management, reference data management, typically master data management, and these days, registry hub sitting on data lake kind of solutions. Whatever technique you used, single view of customer, definition of your customer, how to create single view of customer is absolutely important even before you lay your hands on any kind of corporate-wide customer segmentation kind of problems. So our point of view is that we need to understand the state of single view of customer, how exactly it is maintained, managed. If not, how can we derive that? And once that is in place, we can then talk about how to segment the customer appropriately. Any view you get before that is going to be faulty, and in there is obviously good articles written on SR 711, which is one of the articles based on which model risk management frameworks are built today, typically in banks, but other companies are also using it. Single view of customer is deemed as one of the major tenets of model risk management for any segmentation problem. So anyway, this is one area that we feel that sometimes get neglected because we focus too much on what techniques to use, how to segment, and without knowing whether our basics are right. This particular slide is talking about how to build a single view of customer. It's just a very, very brief articulation of the same, but it can get into a detailed problem statement in itself. We have a brief definition of it. A single view of customer is an aggregated, consistent, holistic representation of the data known to organization about its customers, but what it doesn't say is across all the product lines. Also, it may not be aggregated. It may be deduplicated in some cases too. What are the benefits, challenges? I think we can skip this particular slide, but one thing before we do that is the benefits of creating single view of customer. It's going to be manifold. The predominant benefit that we see today, if you create a single view of customer, is unique customer experience across the channels, across the product lines that a customer is engaging with. With the advent of digital, as you know, there are so many ways a customer can engage. A single view of customer would give you the appropriate means to engage them consistently, no matter which channel the customer is engaging with. It helps you retain the customer. It helps you manage the relationship better. It also helps you unlock your potential by cross-selling or upselling to the customer. Anyway, the benefits are manifold, but challenges are manifold too because of the way the data is historically maintained within organizations. Now, how to capitalize the behavioral data to fully understand the customer? The behavioral data, typically it's divided into two. One is opinions. So it relates to the emotions, intentions, the moods, the preferences. And the second one is behavior. This is observed variable, so kind of record of your physical actions, products that you have purchased. Now, types of behavioral segmentation will be occasions, benefit sought, user status, usage rate, loyalty status. There can be a few more. The goals of segmenting the customers based on behavioral data can be manifold, grouping the segments based on above mentioned features. Now then, once you have done that, the end goal is how to then service the customer better or sell the products. Even before that, which product should target which customer set. And then to meet these needs, modularize your products or services. There is always a feedback loop in most of the segmentation solutions, is that you have to take a relook at the products. In one insurance company we are working for, we saw that they were into commercial insurance business, mostly servicing corporates predominantly banks and credit unions. We uncovered, this was kind of a known fact, but it uncovered the segmentation solution kind of uncovered with a great degree of certainty that products like debt protection, mortgage protection, they are nowhere close to the products being offered by the market penetration is nowhere close to their competitors. Although this particular company had a lot of advantage in terms of customer insight, their end customer insight. So that led to introspection from the product group as to what is going wrong. Is the pricing wrong? Are we marketing it wrong? Are we going to the wrong B2Bs or corporates to sell our products to their end members? But segmentation usually helps you discover them with a great degree of certainty and data points through which you can then target your products and services or relook at it with new light. Again, coming back to business strategy, much of what I spoke about, products, pricing, marketing and branding, part of the product strategy, and dealer channel, I think this is another important thing, and you'd be amazed how external data even today is used are available even for dealers or broker dealers or intermediaries. If your business is not direct to consumer kind of a business, you go through intermediaries. Let's say you are an insurance company that always sells insurance products through broker dealers or financial advisor networks. Let's say you sell your 401ks only through financial advisor networks which are situated outside of your company. Then your segmentation can, the segmentation problem can help you identify which financial advisor network target. Usually they're independent workers. So which ones should you target? How should you target? What are the channel for engagement with them? Which product should you ask which financial advisor to sell to whom? We have actually done something very similar, and the financial advisor network are incentivized in a certain way. What we did in this particular insurance company is that we linked their Salesforce tasks with the insights that we produced from our models. Part of that was segment, and then put them as their tasks as well as their supervisors. The tasks simply became like, in this quarter, the wholesaler, you need to engage with this particular financial advisor 5 times. 3 of them should be over webinar, 2 of them over WebEx calls or video calls, 2 of them over emails. Different financial advisor network participants would have different treatments based on their data set. Talking about external data set, even those kind of intermediaries today, there are data providers that can provide a great deal of insight even to those layers, those producers who sit in between. We have talked about it. I'm going to skip this one, and I'm going to go directly into data science, AI, and ML techniques that we today use for segmentation. So I'm not going into the grammar of what is data science, what is AI, and what is ML. Obviously, there are different definitions out there. These are different techniques. Most of the times, artificial intelligence, data science are used interchangeably. Machine learning is obviously a very specific technique within that discipline. Now, there are steps that you can follow if you're using data science, which kind of, let's use that word to encompass what we are trying to say here, which is AI, ML, and other predictive techniques. Is that what the step 1 in our mind is that you have to do a descriptive analytics. It's an initial stage of data processing. It is not really predictive in nature. What you do is you gather historical data set. Then step 2 is use that descriptive analytics and then create attribution, create cross-channel insight. Step 3 is where you are using customer knowledge and targeting. And step 4 is where you are going with predictive intelligence. All four, these are step-by-step processes, but all four are extremely important. Descriptive analytics specifically is important because one of the live examples that I've seen is, and something that I'm going to talk about in a moment, is if you collect your data appropriately, sometimes the segments that you create that would have noise, you can only detect that noise if you target those segments and do further analysis on them. I'm going to talk in detail about that in a moment. But these are the steps that we prescribe that we follow. Now, segmentation techniques, supervised or that can be supervised or unsupervised. The supervised techniques are usually fast and accurate. Unsupervised are non-objectives, where you leave it to the models to derive the output. The modeling techniques that we use for clustering would be k-means, hierarchical SVM, unsupervised identifies homogeneity, and the decision trees also we use for certain kind of cases. Logistic regression is another technique that we use in many cases. Outside of this, we have seen cases where we don't use any of the AI techniques per se, but what we do is we use the statistical models. The language or the programming language that you can use obviously would be any standard modeling language. If you're using AI techniques, it can be R, it can be Python, it can be SAS, or it can be anything else really. The platform on which your modeling would run. It can be very traditional RDBMS, but if your data set is huge, in most of the cases, what we have seen is companies are going towards big data, and then any of the big data platforms can suffice. Most of the languages or the programming tools that I've mentioned before, they are compatible to all the standard big data platform, as well as Hive or Pig or any of the even NoSQL databases. The other thing is cloud or on-prem. It depends. You can very much use Azure HD Insights or AWS, or you can use on-prem as well. It's really agnostic of where exactly you are carrying out your segmentation. It can be done anywhere, either on-prem or cloud, private or public cloud, doesn't really matter. Obviously, one needs to take care of the data privacy implications. Market segmentation. What are the? I'm going to leave this to your for your study later. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly jump into the case study first, and then I'm going to conclude with why Innovize and what are the differentiators we have used or we have created over time. There are different case studies that are there, but one that I'm going to talk about today, and the rest you can obviously study and get back at your leisure, this is for a large insurance company. And this company was struggling to engage with the customers appropriately because they didn't know whether the customers even could be grouped. The concept of grouping the customers were new. Obviously, there were 2-3 different kind of engagement strategies corporate, this particular insurance company's corporate division had, but then they didn't know which strategy to apply where. So we got into the act. What we did was we looked at their portfolio of customers. The 80% of their revenue, 70-80% of their revenue came from commercial business, and that too from financial organizations. And the remaining, they had other business units which were really growing fast, but still the revenue share was not much. We targeted the B2B customers first, and direct consumer, the consumer base we did later. For the B2B customers, what we did was we tried to find a pattern to identify the most critical or most business critical customers. If there is a formula that we could derive that would give us with certainty that these are the customers that would give you the most revenue or are giving most revenue for last 5 years or something like that. So we took last 5 years of data. We figured out, fortunately for us, that 80% of their revenue is actually coming from about 15-20% of your customer base. And that 15-20% of their customer base had one thing in common, which is their asset size. Their size of those companies were all 100 million plus. So there was not a segmentation problem. It's kind of filtering out your population so that you target the most critical customer base first. So we first filtered out their customer base with their asset size of the B2B customers. And then within that, we figured out that within that customer base, the ones that had 500 million plus in asset size, they were contributing most to the revenue of this insurance company. So we focused only on those 500 million plus asset size companies or customers, and they were contributing roughly about 70 to 75% of the revenue. So if we give this insurance company a way to engage this handful of companies, segment them properly, and give this insurance company a means to engage them properly, 75% of their revenue generating customer base is kind of sorted. So then we analyzed further to figure out what are the dimensions based on which we can segment these customers. And what we figured out was, after a lot of data analysis, of course, is that there are three components. We need to take a combination of three components, three dimensions to segment them appropriately. Those are scale. Obviously, the scale doesn't only mean the asset size here. It's asset size plus the member base for the end customers, plus the profitability. Profitability doesn't mean what is the profitability of the end customer. It's a profitability that this insurance company is gaining from those customers. And the third one is sustainability. How stable is their growth, or how stable is the company at large? Using that, we created these four groups. These are broad groups, but there were about 11 segments created. 11 segments then got further grouped into four levels. We call them levels. Levels are easier to understand to the business leads. So these four levels, and then the count that you see are the number of end customers falling in each of the levels. One is serve and grow accounts. These ones are the strategic growth accounts. These are the ones that we prescribe that this insurance company should target to engage and channel most of their energy and manpower to. Sustain and optimize are the accounts which should be steady state no matter what, no matter how much of investment you give. And profit or pass accounts. These are the accounts which we used to call them segment 11. Now, when we came up with that, obviously that gave them a good idea of which accounts or which of their customers need more attention. But we didn't stop there. We then went on to do further analysis on this this particular segment. And what we then did was we tried to figure out whether the the end customer is falling in this particular segment because it had just one bad year or two bad years, or is it because the customer underwent maybe a huge borrowing for its expansion, and that is reflecting in its profit loss statement, but it is not really a reflection of the reality. We did those kind of analysis. We could do it because the customer base was low, 92. So we could go through each of the cases on case by case basis. We put the accountant's hat on, and then we went through it, sat with the business. And our end objective is to see whether you can move some of these accounts to any of the other accounts, the green or blue preferably, or if not, at least in the amber ones. Our idea was not to leave any of the end customers out unless there is an absolute reason to. The last thing, before I move on from here, is that outside of segmenting the customers into four, we then went on to see that why these customers are falling in these four categories, which products are most appealing to them, where we are penetrating more, our immediate customer is penetrating more, where they are not. In some cases, we saw that some of these end B2B customers falling in red, they are only subscribing to one or two products, and those products across the board, across all the customer base, they are not really performing well. But these customers just happen to subscribe to those products, those non-performing products. So that gave some food for thought for this particular insurance company to relook at those kind of products and see how can they better structure those products, or the product strategy could be any different. Now, last section, although last but one section in my deck, is why our company. As we mentioned at the front end of our discussion, we are an analytics and data management company. Analytics is our heart. Segmentation obviously is a problem that we solve anywhere, almost anywhere we engage with. So we have got a deep knowledge about what different kind of segmentation situations that can arise and how to solve them. And then obviously we have got the people, the solution accelerators, and the skill set, as well as the partnerships to aid that. Our experts range from data scientists to domain experts to strategy consultants. And we have differentiators that we'd be happy to share with you at a later point that can jumpstart your solution. It is not really limited to segmentation. We have got vast area of solution accelerators in different areas of data management that can be made use of based on your needs. I will take a pause. That kind of brings me to the close of my presentation, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Sim?
Thank you, Souvik. And I guess we have a very interactive audience with us, and we have got a lot of questions. I'll take them one by one. The question number one that we have here is, what is the topmost challenge to any classification problem, specifically if it's about a customer segmentation?
Yeah, I think I touched upon this. I would take two problems which I felt as the most critical are the most critical ones. The first one is relating the business problem. So your segmentation can yield different kind of results, but relating that to the end business case and to assess whether your output is appropriate, it's performing well, it's performing the way it was supposed to. It's not always measurable. It varies, and that poses a huge challenge. Sometimes it poses funding challenges if your output performance is vague. Sometimes it doesn't. For instance, claims segmentation, something that perhaps we haven't spoken about on this call. It's very, very objective. It is a way to segment your claims and the claimants, essentially the parties that are claiming. It is typically claims segmentation happens in two industries, insurance and healthcare. But what you do is through different methods, you segment the complexity of the claim and the chances of the claim being fraudulent. And then there are different, again, modeling techniques like natural language processing that you can use to see what are the next steps that need to be carried out. There are business process engines that you can plug in. But the outcome of it, right, whether your model has generated the right kind of output or not, it is objective. It can be measured easily. But where the segmentation problem is, or segmentation solution gives an output which is then used for vast array of things across the organization. It doesn't have any direct tangible output, but it participates in other things. Then the effectiveness of your model, the measurement of that becomes opaque. That poses a challenge for us. We don't really know whether we have created the right model, we have created the right challenger model. Do we need to change the model or not? It becomes a bit of a messy affair. The best thing to do in that case is, rather than creating matrices and APIs, which anyway we have to do, and performance dashboards and so on and so forth, we need to stay engaged with the business and all forms wherever this output is used, and constantly seek advice whether the output generated from the models are sacrosanct, whether we need further changes to it. That is one challenge we have faced. The other challenge, I'd say, with a similar degree of severity, is the data collection. In many cases, it's a problem statement not only limited to segmentation; it's across the board in data science. Is that the data in most of the cases that comes from internal sources, we find them to be incorrect or insufficient, and the artificial value that we impute, many cases that becomes far too much. So the output that you then get, it may not always be aligned with your reality. Solution to that in many cases is to go for external data vendors, get external data in. But again, it varies from case to case. I'll give you one practical example that I didn't have that experience, but I heard it in last week when I was attending a seminar in New York. It was about a regulatory, it's a banking regulatory called CECL, and it's essentially to capture the, so protect the banks against the exposure, the loans. So how much capital reserve do you have, should you have during the lifetime losses? Now, one of the CFOs was saying that he is part of a consulting company. He was saying that when he went for analysis, he found that about 30 to 40% of the data is in the files, and those files are stored in basement somewhere in a biohazard situation. How to get the data out? It cannot be even OCR. They are maintained in a very, very bad situation. How do you get that kind of data out? If you don't get that data out, obviously your historical data points are going to be diluted. So effective distribution of data, effective availability of the right data set remains a challenge.
All right, then the second question we have here is what capabilities does InnoVision provide in segmentation space?
Yeah, we do have our solution accelerators. Much of the segmentation solutions are, we do have a process to capture what is your business problem, and then we have got a few templates to figure out different problem statements, what are the dimensions that we should use, what kind of variables we should use, what kind of techniques we should use. Apart from that, we have got experience, dozens of experience of implementing segmentation problems in different areas in different industries. And lastly, we have the people and the skill set to carry them out. So that would be our key differentiators.
Okay, let me take this question as well. Does segmentation play part in claims in healthcare?
Yeah, it does. Segmentation problem does play a part in healthcare as well as insurance in two different ways. The fundamentals remain the same. The healthcare, meaning typically the providers industry, the hospitals, and so on and so forth. when a claim comes from it usually is filed through insurance, but it propagates back to the healthcare providers. So it's part of a complete life cycle. It impacts both the industry practices. And yeah, claims as a discipline covers both, and thereby claims segmentation also does the same. Claims in from the data science point of view, it covers two things. One is segmentation. So how would you view your claim? Is it a complex claim? It's a simple claim. It's a fraudulent claim. It's a valid claim. That kind of thing. The other thing is then figure out what to do with the claim. What are the next steps? What are the business processes that one need to follow? The third thing where we see increasingly natural language processing being used is that typically, since our question is about healthcare, doctors' notes, those take these days through natural language processing techniques of AI. We see them being used extensively in the investigation purpose of claims. So when claim is being investigated, doctors' notes, which are free-form texts, are being compared and seen in the right light. But yeah, short answer to your question is yes.
All right, thank you, Souvik. I think we're running out of time, and still we have a couple of questions from the audience left unanswered. We'll get all the questions answered from Souvik, and we'll mail it to respective attendees with the recording of the session, and we will definitely encourage the feedbacks as well. Uh, Thank you, Souvik. Any last words you want to say to the audience?
No, I sincerely thank everyone for joining and spending your time with us. If there are any problems or not all the discussions would need to have dollar value associated with it. I or my team would be happy to engage with you for idea sharing purposes as well. But otherwise, many thanks for your time and happy holidays.
Thank you, Souvik. You all have been a fantastic audience. Thank you for joining in. Happy holidays, and hope you all have a productive day ahead. Thank you. Thanks a lot.